Hi, everybody. Welcome to Talk North Podcast. We're excited to have you join us today. This is Laura Schara hosting the podcast this afternoon, and I'm really excited for the guest that will be joining me today because not only is he my inspiration and my mentor in life, but he's also my father. Dad, Ron Schara, welcome.
Thank you. I'll send you a check later for that great introduction.
Yes. Well, I probably didn't even do it justice. But today on the podcast, we are going to be talking about Raven. So the whole half hour is dedicated towards Raven the Black Lab. And we know that both you and I have plenty of things we can share about Raven and all three Ravens and how wonderful they were. And my first question for you to kick off the podcast, though, is why Black Labs? We've had Black Labs for many, many years. That's all I remember as a child is Black Lab. So why did you choose the Black Lab as a dog?
Well, that's a good question. As I got older in my teens, I was still, 16, 17 years old. My parents, I got a Christmas puppy. It was a Cocker Spaniel, and named it Taffy, and discovered that Cocker Spaniels are very birdy dogs, as well as just being great pets. And so Taffy and I would roam around a little bit, and she'd get the scent of a pheasant and start running, and then put it up 100 yards away, But so I never could use her much for hunting, but it intrigued me. So later in college, I ended up getting a golden retriever and trained it, got books, trained it as best I could. Goldens are pretty easy to train. They're eager to please. But definitely, this is a bona fide hunting dog now. This is a bona fide retriever, bird dog, and did real well. Well, then I ran into some training people who started talking about field trials. Hey, you should bring your dog and we do some field trials. So they'd have these hunting tests, where the retrieving tests, etc. So I started doing that, and we did okay. I don't think we got many ribbons, but while I was there, you couldn't help but notice that the Labrador retrievers were just outshining any other breed. They were stronger, faster, flashier dogs. Goldens are wonderful, but they kind of take their time, and they're more proud of a retrieve than a lab just says, here, I'm bringing it back to you, boss. What's next? And so if I got convinced that if I was ever going to win any ribbons, I better get myself a Black Lab. And so that's how it all started. And I got one. A guy was willing to sell me real cheap. Turned out it was flat-footed, but he was a retrieving fool, and I started winning some ribbons. So I've been a Black Lab fan ever since.
And what was the name of that dog?
That was Pedge was his name.
Pedge. Well, that was before I was born. And was Pedge a male Black Lab?
Yeah, he was a big old male. A retrieving fool. I say that because he was a wonderful retriever, but he wasn't too smart about anything else. I mean, kind of dingling kind of a retriever, but he was a fun dog. And sadly, when I left, I had him in South Dakota. And when I left South Dakota to take my new job with the Star Tribune, I could not, it just was impossible for me to care for a dog too, and didn't know exactly where I was going to end up. So I left him with some friends in South Dakota.
Oh boy, that had to have been tough.
Yeah, it was tough, but
it happens. Well, I remember as a little girl, the first Black Lab that I remember is Coot was a male Black Lab, and he ran away a lot. That's what I remember.
Your mother loved that dog. Not.
Yeah.
She hated that dog. Well, Coot was a wonderful hunting dog. He was my first really good hunting dog. And but he liked to roam the neighborhood looking for girlfriends, and he often chose times to do it when I wasn't home. And so your mother would she would have this fear of death that this dog was going to disappear while I wasn't there, and that she'd be blamed and everything else. And I got to admit, he drove me crazy too. I remember once he was gone, and so I started driving around the neighborhood looking for him, and I finally spotted him, and I drove up to him, and of course, he knew my vehicle, and he took off running, not to me. He went running away from me like a damn coyote to get home as fast as he could before I did.
Yeah, I was hoping you wouldn't notice.
Yeah, but he was a wonderful dog in any other sense, and then of course he got cancer, and there's a sad story there. And you were a little girl, you and your sister, and I remember telling you that it was time to take him into the vet because he wouldn't eat, and I told you girls maybe we should go say goodbye to Coot, and I walked back downstairs, and lo and behold, he was dead already. So I didn't have to take him in. I did take him in, but I also decided then that my next lab was going to be a female. Females are not apt to be wandering the neighborhood looking for action, and don't raise their leg everywhere they go. Not looking for a fight when they're with other dogs, and so that started a bunch of females, and I never had a lab since.
Yes, that's why I wanted to ask you that question about Coot, because in our family we've only had typically female black labs, and I know you had a reason behind that. And I also heard you say a couple times that you think female labs are more aggressive hunters per se. They don't quit as much or maybe wander as much as some of the male dogs do.
Well, it's difficult to make flat statements because each lab is different.
Sure.
But I would just say generally that the female lab, genetically, historically, always hunted for the litter. And so I think they have a pretty serious hunting face on when they're out there. Not that some males don't either. They can have a very serious hunting face, and also males tend to be, if in rough water, they're stronger, they're bigger. Not that females can't either. So I think I'm digging myself a hole here, but the way I kind of put it is people ask me, what's your favorite dog? What's your favorite dog? I go, my favorite dog is the one that's well trained and is a good hunter walking in front of me. I don't care if it's a lab or a pointer or whatever. So it's kind of every dog has its day, so to speak.
That's true. Well, there's that phrase that everybody believes their dog is the best dog and nobody is wrong.
Yeah. I also believe, there's an old saying, Laura, that a man only gets one good dog in his lifetime. And I got to say that's not true in my case. I've had a lot of wonderful dogs. And while you were a little girl also, I've had labs come in that, they're not going to make the cut. They just weren't birdie. They just weren't aggressive in retrieving. I mean, and I had to talk my way through both you and your sister to say, hey, we're going to get her, Kelly, we're going to get her a nice home, blah, blah, blah. But, and you went along with it. But, when you get a hunting dog, that's almost like getting married for 10 years anyway. And so you better like each other, and you better get along, because you're married for 10 years. And so if it doesn't work, you better bite the bullet, find another home for this dog where they're maybe not demanding hunting skills, etc., and get a dog that has these talents.
Yes, I do remember a few of those dogs that didn't make the cut. When we were little, we were like, where'd she go? But I have to say, as soon as the new black lab puppy arrived in the house, I think we forgot about it really quick as well. But of course, all those other dogs went to good homes, as we know. So Raven, the original Raven, she, out of all three Ravens, I think, I'll let you speak on this, I guess. Is the original Raven still have your heart the most, or how would you compare the three Ravens as hunting partners?
Well, as hunting partners, they all were wonderful. But going back to Raven to be with me on the Minnesota Bound television show, the first Raven, which, by the way, I think most people know that was by accident. It was not planned to have a black lab sitting next to me. It was not planned to have a red bandana on her. It wasn't planned for me to say, and she's the star of the show. That stuff all happened by accident, because I had lost my other lab to a heat stroke, and so Raven came as a puppy, and the television show came along when she was about 6 months old, and ended up being sitting next to me, which was a suggestion by your mother, by the way. But being the first Raven, being the dog that really put Minnesota Bound and me on the viewer's map, so to speak, her charisma was tremendous. People loved her. She had the puppies that just made everybody melt, and we gave one away, and we had all this big fundraising deal for a wildlife area for Pheasants Forever. She was very animated on camera, which made everything just perfect. Plus, she was just a wonderful hunting dog. So yeah, Raven the first, like I said, she launched my career, launched my TV production business, etc. And so my heart's strong with her. Now her Raven the second was her daughter, and she was a wonderful dog too, but didn't have quite the charisma that her mother had. And I told her, she always looked like I just had hit her with a 2x4, and I'd scold her a little bit. With the first Raven, if I get on her case for getting down from doing something she wasn't supposed to do while we were doing TV, she'd just perk right back up again. Where the second Raven, I know, and then she'd finally get better. I'd have to coax her into perking her ears. But then the third Raven, the last Raven, who just passed away in February, she was much like her grandmother, very perky, very good in front of the camera, and a wonderful hunting dog as well. So very blessed there. They were all related, and they were the end too.
So I think what some people, probably a lot of people, wouldn't know is there was some tricks going on behind the scenes to get all three Ravens to perk their ears all the time. Granted, they were naturally curious, but there was also some tricks that the production was doing. Can you share some of those?
Well, yeah, sometimes you had to do some tricks quiet. You couldn't do a squeaky mouse, for example, or you could if the camera wasn't rolling, but we did that once in a while. Other times, somebody behind the camera would throw something in the air just a little ways. Well, they caught that movement because they're used to seeing things fly, and so they would perk up there, and that was advantageous. They're still a dog. A dog is a dog. And we'd be sitting there on the hay bale, and I'd be giving this absolutely perfect lines, what I was supposed to do for the wraps or whatever. Job is just perfect. And the camera guy would say, you got to cut, you got to do that again. I'm like, what do you mean? I got to, it says, Raven yawned. She yawned. so I'd have to do it over again. Another time.
She's fallen asleep on the job.
Yeah, my first camera guy was wonderfully talented videographer, producer, Joe Harowitz, who wonderful in every way. I can't praise him enough, but he didn't understand too much about dogs or wildlife, and we were shooting some wraps out at the Wild Wings shooting preserve, kind of giving a country look there, and Joe set the shot up so that we were looking at the camera, but Joe thought it'd be really nice if there were some mallard ducks swimming behind us, not realizing that if there were mallard ducks swimming behind us, guess where my dog was going to be looking?
Yeah.
At the mallard duck.
That's right.
So we had to reset everything so we couldn't have the ducks swimming nicely behind us. So I'm still laughing about that. But
it's always challenges working with live animals. Sometimes people don't realize that they're still dogs and they'll jump off the hay bale or, all sorts of things.
Yeah. I tell people, a couple of things. Well, one we should get to is the amount of money that the 3 dogs raised for Pheasants Forever for wildlife area.
Yes.
And we'll get to that. But I always like to tell people that through all the years, 25 years of me traveling with the Black Lab in the name of television and going to all kinds of events where I'm the speaker, the dog is there. Sometimes she's roaming around the tables looking for food. I mean, it's just state fair, you name it. She made all kinds of public appearances, inside, outside. There was only one time in all those years where Raven had a huge mistake. And I say huge because it was not only big, it was at the Mall of America as well. I mean, it doesn't get much bigger than that. And
she had an accident at the Mall of America.
Oh my! And it was both. It was a pile there. I'll put it that way. And it's my own fault. It's my own fault because I didn't understand when you travel with a lab like that. You get them in the car, and she always rode in a kennel. Not up there in the front seat with me. I don't need a big lab helping me drive. So she's in the kennel. But so we drove down the Mall of America, and of course, most of the world is cement around there. I kind of thought about maybe trying to find some grass, let her go do her thing, but I couldn't think of where any would be, and I was maybe getting late. So I thought, well, she can hold it. So we parked and went into the Mall of America. It was in the morning before the mall even opened up. We were going to make an appearance at a wildlife theater that the Mall of America had way back when. I don't think they have it anymore. And so I'm walking in there with her on a leash, and then suddenly I sensed that she wasn't coming with me anymore, and that's because she was squatting there.
Oh no!
So about that time, around the corner comes a security guy, and he looks at me, he looks at the dog, he looks at what the dog just left on the floor, and he's not smiling, and he says, "What are you doing here with your dog?"
You're like, wait, said, let me put the bandana on her, then maybe you'll know.
Yeah, that's what I said. I said, no, excuse me. Yeah, this is a very famous dog. This is a big TV star, and she's going to make an appearance here. I went out and said, if you'll help me, I'd be happy to clean it up. He sighed and said, go ahead, I'll take care of it. So
that's when you know she's a bona fide celebrity. If he's saying he'll take care of it.
Exactly.
Speaking of, celebrities and dogs, and I know our family has always been in awe of just the star power of Raven and how, the impact she's made with the public and people that watch the show. And it amazes us still to this day. And I just want you to touch base on a little bit on how it has touched you and just did you ever think that your Black Lab would have such an impact on Minnesota?
I never never in my wildest dreams. Uh, and I still can't explain it. When Raven III passed away and we announced it, it was like 500,000 people expressed their sadness. I would watch State Fair people walking directly over to our Minnesota bound cabin on the north side where Raven would stay. She'd be laying there behind a fence, and people would walk up and just stand there and stare at this dog. And then we did retrieving displays twice a day there at the fair for 15 years. They just loved her, and she loved them. I mean, any lab does. They love to be petted, etc. But I still can't explain how she had this impact on people, except that the combination of a lab wearing a red bandana and being a TV star just was never done before. And but her popularity also made it possible for Pheasants Forever and for Minnesota Bound to use her popularity for some good causes. And one of them was to help build a wildlife area in Minnesota that are open to the public, managed by DNR. And the 3 dogs raised, not directly raised, but with the money they raised, with matching grants, et cetera, raised close to $1 million. And the first Raven by herself was responsible for $250,000 that went to a place called the Two Rivers Wildlife Area. It's west of Sleepy Eye, Minnesota. It's 600 or 700 acres of wildlife area, not a native prairie. DNR manages it. Pheasants there, deer there. It's open to the public for hunting, bird watching, whatever. And just as when that was first bought with using Raven money from DU and Ducks Unlimited, DNR, etc., they had a big sign there that said Two Rivers Wildlife Area here is a result of Pheasants Forever, Ducks Unlimited, DNR, blah, 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 and Raven, the star of the show. So when Raven III passed, I have her ashes. I have Raven II ashes, and Raven the first ashes were put in a little garden bench that's in my yard to this day. And so what we're going to do is, and I got permission from DNR to do this, and won't do it until this fall, I think, but got permission to take that bench down to the Two Rivers Wildlife Area, and the ashes from both dogs, that would mean all 3 dogs' ashes will be there. And I'm going to have a bronze plaque made that tells visitors that these 3 dogs' ashes are here because they helped secure this place. So anyway, that's my plan.
That's a great plan.
Yeah.
And it's open to the public, correct?
Yeah, it's a public wildlife area, WMA, they call it, Minnesota Wildlife Management Area. Yeah, they're open to the public. But the only thing you can't do there is zoom run on 4-wheelers in there. But you can hike, you can hunt, like I said, bird watch. You can sit there and contemplate your navel, whatever you want to do. But it's open to the public year round. Yep.
Very cool. Well, we've had many dogs over the years, from Labradors to, at one point you even tested out a Brittany Spaniel and some Chesapeake Bay Retrievers, and
oh yeah,
yes,
yep.
And we've always been a dog family. And you're one thing I don't think people realize too is the amount of training that you do yourself with all of the dogs, and then on top of Tom Dokken doing quite a bit of training for all 3 of the Ravens. But, now that many of us are at home, and there's no better time than now to do some dog training within your house. Do you have tips for people just on basic dog training just within your house?
Well, the first thing you have to do is learn how dogs learn. and get a good book about dog training. And obviously, you can't be outside throwing training dummies, or maybe it's not a retriever, but indeed, you have to learn how dogs learn, and you can't be their sidekick, their friend. You have to be the leader of the pack. Dogs are pack animals, and they respond to the leader of the pack. And if you keep asking your dog to do stuff instead of telling your dog to do stuff, the dog will eventually conclude that the dog is the leader of the pack and you follow the dog. Lower your voice and talk to your dog like you mean it. So you don't say sit, like, would you please sit? You say sit, sit, and like you mean it. And dogs respond to that. So there's a lot of stuff you can do in your house. You can sit, stay. Sometimes people, you don't have to use the word stay. If you just say sit and you don't say anything else and the dog sits until you say okay or whatever, you don't have to even use the word stay. Of course, a dog that knows its name and comes when it's called are very, very valuable. Many times I would take my lab puppies in the garage, and the garage is a good place too. You close the garage door. So now it's you and the dog, and you ask the dog to do something, and the dog says to itself, I don't really feel like doing that. I think I'm just going to run away, which happens if the dog is outside. Now it's, I know where I'm going here. I better do what I'm told. Or if it doesn't, you can catch the dogs and scold them and be the leader of the pack. And I use a rolled up newspaper on the rump. It doesn't hurt the dog, but they don't like it. And you get their attention. So I think the main thing, I see a lot of people who the dog is leading them when they're taking for a walk. That means the dog is saying, I'm in charge here. I'm ahead. Or people talk to their dog like it's a buddy, a friend. That's fine if the dog is well trained. But if the dog is still telling you where to go, you got to change your methods there.
Yeah, and I remember growing up, there was a lot of rules around specifically new puppies. When we had a new black lab puppy in the house, there was definitely rules on playtime versus crate training versus letting them cry it out in the crate at night, things like that. And, with all the Ravens and spending time with you at game fair and the state fair and things like that, there was always so many compliments that were given on how well trained she was and how calm she was to sit in her Raven chair. And a lot of that is due to the time you put in and the training that you put in. And I don't think people realize that they all could have calm, quote unquote, Raven-like personalities if they put the time and the energy into training.
Yeah, well, I did do a lot of training, that kind of training, have her in her director's chair and heeling, sitting, that kind of stuff, walking on the leash at my knee and not running out ahead. Obviously, Tom Dokken, who was a wonderful trainer, I think one of the best in the country, down Oak Ridge Kennels. He did a lot of the hard work. For a hunting dog, he introduced all the Ravens to gunfire, for example. Mm-hmm. Introduced them to feathers, birds, ducks on the water, pigeons, some basic hunting things, forced retrieving, which is important. So when you tell a dog to fetch it up, they go get it. They don't tell you, I don't feel like it. They go get it. And so he did that. I always say that's the real college stuff that he did. But because I've had labs for so long and I've well read about training them, I trained a dog once in college for somebody else. So I know, I feel like I know what I'm doing, but it takes a lot of time. And with the 3 Ravens, I really didn't have the time. So Tom Dokken trained all of them for those things I just mentioned. But the daily stuff, going on public appearances, etc. I was the guy that I was the boss, so to speak.
Yes, no, we knew that.
If if I could only have trained my daughters as well as I did my dogs, that'd be
Yeah,
all
it didn't
right.
work quite. It didn't quite work so well. You were overruled by estrogen in the house, Dad. Female dogs, 2 daughters, mom, all of it.
Yeah, for sure.
Well, I know that we have probably wrapping up our time here. There's a lot of Raven stories to share and dog stories in general. I've been getting at the state fair this past year. There's a lot of questions on, is there going to be another Raven? And so I thought we would clear the air on that as our last question of the podcast.
Well, that's a good one with a tough answer. When
to be determined.
Well, let me just put it this way: the first morning I walked up the driveway to get the newspaper. This is after Raven the Third was gone. There was no dog in our house. I walked up the driveway to get the newspaper, and it dawned on me that that's the first time I'd walked up the driveway to fetch the newspaper without a dog for, I can't tell you, 30 years or more. And I walked back in the house and I told your mother, I said, I got to get a puppy. And she said, if you get a puppy, you'll also have to find yourself a wife. So that kind of took care of that. But so people ask
me, didn't mean
it. So I answer it this way. Am I going to get another Raven? I go, doubtful, but maybe.
Yeah.
There you go.
And Raven the Third, also we can say gave you a blessing by the way she also passed, and I think that's a great story that you share. Because every dog owner dreads the day that they have to take their dog into the vet to euthanize them, should that be the way that that they must go. And Raven decided to go on her own peacefully, and I know that meant a lot to you.
It did, and let me say this too, because you played a big role in that. Because your mother and I were not in town when Raven took a turn for the worse, and you went to get her from the kennel where they were calling and saying she wasn't doing too good. So you went to get her and took her to your place, and I almost flew home because of that. But then you FaceTimed us with the Raven. I could see her laying there with her eyes blinking, and I talked to her, but she didn't really respond. So you, my dear daughter, on your own, set it up. So you burned some sage and you played Indian flute music for Raven into the night. And when next morning, when the flute music had gone away, and Raven also had gone away. And I always love you for that and appreciate that. And then, like you said, I absolutely dread it, as any dog owner knows, whether it's a little poodle or whatever, the day that you say, oh, this is it. I can make this dog without suffering anymore. And I hated that idea, because if I opened the back of the truck and said, Raven, we're going to go for a ride, she couldn't jump up there anymore. I'd have to lift her in. But I knew that her tail would be wagging because she loved to ride in that truck. And I knew she didn't know that this was going to be her last ride. And I dreaded that thought. And the way Raven went, the way you helped out, spared me of that. I'm forever grateful.
Yeah. And I think, I don't know, I feel like sometimes dogs know. It's almost like she did us all a favor by going peacefully and naturally, and we thank her for, not only that, but just all of what she did for you and Minnesota Bound and Pheasants Forever. And she was a great dog.
That's for sure.
All right. Any final comments on the Ravens and the legacy of Raven and all that she's done for you?
No, not really. It was a magical thing with all 3 dogs, and Of course, when you're in television, you always have to be grateful for all the people that tuned in
Absolutely.
and who loved Raven as much as I did. So there you go.
That's right. All right, Dad. Well, this is fun. We're going to have to do a few more podcasts. We can come up with all sorts of fun adventures. Maybe talk about how to introduce kids to the great outdoors, because I think you have a lot of tips and tricks, considering you got both my sister and I introduced to the outdoors. So maybe that will be our next podcast.
Well, I was thinking more of maybe an hour-long discourse on all the big fish I caught over the years. So we could do that.
Yeah, we could explain. We could explain each one in detail. That would be great, Dad. I'm sure they'd love it.
That'd be about a 1 minute podcast.
Yeah. No, I think it'd be a little bit longer than that, but we'll talk about all the muskies I caught. How's that?
There you go. Very good, Laura. Thank you.
All right. Thanks, Dad. It was fun.